Who goes over? Who goes under? Who covers? It is time to go all across this big nation and pick some Week 4 Big Ten matchups. Let's go.
From Pasadena to Piscataway, College Park to the Coliseum, Seattle to State College, Columbus to Camp Randall, the Zoo to the Rock, and everywhere in between. This is where Big Ten fans gather to talk America's premier national conference with your host, Big Ten Ted. All Big Ten, all year long. This is Big Nation.
You know, I know we have USC and Notre Dame at the end of the season, but for the most part, here in week number 4, we are finishing up non-conference play for a majority of Big Ten teams. Now, this Big Nation show, this Big Nation segment, whatever you want to call it, it's going to look a little bit different, right? We're going to have mega reactions on Monday. We're going to have this type of segment, picks and predictions, over there on Friday. All right, let's get into those week 4 picks. Why don't we? I already covered Friday night's, tonight's matchup of the Illinois Fighting Illini and the Nebraska Cornhuskers in depth already. So go over to YouTube or Spotify to check out my analysis on that particular matchup. But I will say this about the Illini and the Cornhuskers, a ranked versus ranked battle on Fox College Football Friday night. I think Illinois needs to force turnovers. I think Nebraska has done a really good job taking care of the football. Man, but when you look at the Black Shirts defense, when you look at this home crowd, the 400th consecutive sellout in Memorial Stadium history, I think all of that put together, it's just too much. I think Nebraska is going to do really good running the football. I've got Nebraska 24 and Illinois 13. So that's a Nebraska cover of the 7.5. And I've got this one going under at 42.5. I think Nebraska is going to be able to run the football. I think they're going to want to run the football in this game. I don't think that they're going to look to be ultra explosive. I think Illinois is pretty solid defensively as well. So I don't necessarily see a points explosion on Friday night between the Huskers and the Illini. Let's talk about Ohio State and let's talk about Indiana, because I think both of these teams are going to keep on rolling. Big noon Saturday, I've got Ohio State 48 and Marshall 6. I think this one goes over the 52.5. I think there's a possibility that Ohio State goes over the 52.5 just by themselves. And then you look at Indiana, I've got Hoosiers 45 and Charlotte 49ers 7 in that matchup. Hammer that IU spread right now. They're minus 28.5 right now. I think that they are going to roll at home against the 49ers. That offense is absolutely humming in Bloomington, Indiana. Let's talk about the Maryland Terrapins. They are hosting the number 6 team in the FCS right now in Villanova. I think Villanova could push back a little bit. I think we're still waiting to see exactly where Maryland is, how maybe good this offense is, right? Where this defense, where the trenches certainly sit for Mike Loxley and the Terrapins right now. So I've got this one, Maryland 31, Villanova 10. That covers the minus 17.5 for the Terps right now, but I've got this one going under 43.5. Villanova has been pretty good so far on the defensive side of the football. I certainly think Maryland still gets theirs. I've got them with 4 touchdowns and a field goal, but maybe not the offensive explosion that we saw earlier in the year when they put up a 50-burger to start this season. Let's talk about Kent State and Penn State. Oh, those poor Golden Flashes. They have given up 55 points to Pitt. They gave up 71 points to Tennessee. A lot of teams are going to give up a lot of points to the Tennessee Volunteers this season. I will say that. Penn State, 49-point favorites. 7 touchdown favorites. I don't care who you play. That's always a pretty tough one to cover. I think Penn State really gets it rolling offensively. I think that this is a get-right game. We know about that game a couple of weeks against Bowling Green. They had a bye week to try to figure things out, specifically in the secondary. I want to see them absolutely shut down Kent State in this particular matchup. I've got Penn State 56 and Kent State 14. Now, I could see this one sitting at something like 56-7 in the fourth quarter. You get second stringers in there, you get third stringers in there, you get freshmen, you get young kids in there, and maybe they allow a backdoor cover for the Golden Flashes. So I've got Kent State covering plus 49 in this particular football game. I know that will absolutely break the heart of some of those folks that bet Penn State to cover that 49-point spread with that backdoor cover late in the game. All right, let's talk about USC and Michigan. This is another one of those games that I've provided my preview, in-depth analysis on YouTube and Spotify, so go check that out if you haven't already. But I've got USC 27 and Michigan 10. Get out your hammer, go to the garage, get out your hammer, and hammer USC -5. I look at a lot of this football game, and I look at maybe Michigan's inefficiencies on the offensive side of the football. I look at what USC is as a total team, that impressive win over LSU to start the season. I think they're going to win by more than a touchdown. I honestly look at this game, and I look at a lot of different pieces, and it was hard for me to predict this one. You know, even Michigan covering a 2-touchdown spread right now. So certainly at -5, get out and hammer that for the Trojans right now. I think this one goes under. Right? It's 43.5 right now, is sitting there at the over-under. I think Michigan is going to be able to run the ball at least a little bit right in this game. I think that's what they're going to look to do. They're going to look to control the clock, keep USC's offense off the field, right? And I think that limits possessions, limits the explosive amount of points, right, that USC can put on the scoreboard. So, even if this one is something like 30-10, or maybe Michigan puts some more points on the board, I still feel pretty good about this one going under that 43.5 right now. Let's talk about UCLA going to Baton Rouge to take on the LSU Tigers. Oh, those poor Bruins. They've got some problems in Westwood right now. No question about that. I've got LSU 38 and UCLA 13 in this specific matchup. I think it could be very similar to the Indiana game. I think LSU is going to have a lot of fun, right, offensively against this Bruins defense that has been struggling. This is a Bruins offensive line that also has been struggling so far this season. It's kind of surprised me that, Garber's at quarterback and some of these weapons, TJ Harden, that they haven't been able to get this offense going a lot more this season, but I think it comes down to up front. I think it comes down to the trenches. I think they're struggling up front. LSU takes advantage of this one, but I've actually got this one going under. And I feel pretty confident about the under at 56.5, mostly because of UCLA's inability to score the football. Like something like a 42-10, that still is about 4.5 points under the over-under for this game. So I feel confident, not necessarily because I don't think LSU can't score, because they can, but because of UCLA's inability to move the football and score the football as well. LSU easily covers the -22.5. Let's talk about purple versus purple, cats versus dogs. Northwestern traveling to Seattle to take on the Washington Huskies. You saw last week, Washington only scored 19 points against Washington State's defense. I think Northwestern also has a pretty good defense, and I think Northwestern can limit things that Washington wants to do on the offensive side of the football. I think the Wildcats defense can slow down the Huskies, but I just don't think Northwestern has enough offensive firepower now with Jack Lausch at quarterback to be able to put up enough points on this Washington defense. I think you look late third quarter, you look early fourth quarter, I think that this could be a pretty close game. This could possibly be a one-possession game, but I think the Huskies pull away in the end. Get out that hammer once again. Hammer Northwestern plus 12.5. I think that's a good bet. I think that's a very good bet for this weekend. I've got to go in under the 42.5 with a total game score of 38. Let's talk Rutgers at Virginia Tech. A couple of Big Ten ACC games. Big Ten teams going on the road out east to their ACC counterparts' home stadium. Lane Stadium, Blacksburg. This is going to be a tough environment for Rutgers. But when you look at Virginia Tech, this is a Hokie defense that has not been good defending the ground game so far. They've given up over 180 yards in a game twice this season. This is a Virginia Tech team that lost to Vanderbilt, and then Georgia State also ended up beating Vanderbilt. So I think that Kyle Monangai and this run game can really get going, and they can have a lot of success, just like they did against Brent Pry and the Hokies last season. I think Rutgers is certainly going to lean into that run game. I think they're going to eat up clock. They're going to eat up drives. So I feel pretty good about this one going under 44.5. Rutgers just needs to make some stops on Kydron Drones and this Hokies offense. The other Big Ten ACC crossover, the Michigan State Spartans going up to Chestnut Hill, going up to the Northeast to take on the Boston College Eagles. I think that this is going to be a very close game. This is a big game. This is a key game for the Michigan State Spartans, right? Because they want to get to that bowl eligibility, and we know how tough the middle or the beginning to middle of this Big Ten schedule is for the Spartans. So getting as many wins early in the season is going to be key for Jonathan Smith. I think Michigan State ends up covering +6.5. I think that this is a very close game. I think both quarterbacks could have a good day throwing the ball against these opposing passing defenses. Of course, Aiden Childs for Michigan State, Thomas Castellanos for the Eagles as well. I'm also confident that this one goes over the 48.5 because I think both offenses are going to be able to move the football. Floyd of Rosedale game. I covered this one on YouTube more in depth. I covered this one on Spotify more in depth. So check out that preview if you haven't already. Big Ten Saturday night. Both teams are going to look to run the ball. Both teams are going to look to play good defense. So I think there's going to be limited possessions. I think it's going to be tough to run the football. So I certainly don't see a points explosion in this particular game, right? This is as Big Ten West, certainly, as it gets. This is as traditional, old school kind of Big Ten type of football as it gets in this particular game. So because of the way both teams want to play, I think that's what keeps it close in this game. I think special teams is something that could also determine the outcome of this particular football game. Iowa covers -3, and this one goes under the 35.5. We're going to finish things up with the Purdue Boilermakers and the Oregon State Beavers, two teams that got hammered last week. Of course, the Boilermakers lost 66-7 against Notre Dame. Oregon State lost against their in-state rival Oregon 49-14. Now, Oregon State wants to run the football. And Notre Dame last week was able to do absolutely anything in the run game. They owned the line of scrimmage up front. Purdue was not able to make tackles in the open field. You look at Jam Griffin, you look at Anthony Hankerson in that run game for Oregon State. I think they're going to look to get that going early. But I also think Purdue can maybe attack this Oregon State secondary down the field. So can Purdue throw the ball better, or can Oregon State run the ball better? I think that's what it comes down to. I think Oregon State wins 26-23. So take Purdue +4.5 in this particular football game. Those are my picks. What about your picks? Leave them in the comments below. Who covers over-unders? All of that. You can leave that in the comments below. I'm Big Ten Ted. Enjoy your Big Ten College Football Saturday, and we will see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching and listening to Big Nation. Make sure to subscribe and follow Big Ten Ted on X, YouTube, and podcast platforms to stay in the know on all things Big Ten football.